Hello everyone, good morning. Myself Mullidhar Reddy. I'm a DevOps consultant and solution architect. Now we are going to discussing about types of Maven repository. Let's see that so that you will get some idea. So for that one, right, here we have a date and Maven, types of Maven repository. Here I have written that README file. We can go with step by step. First of all, in Maven repositories, it will be stored dependencies and plugins and other artifacts. It will be stored. Here we have in Maven, we have three types of repositories. One is local repository, central repository, and the remote repository. We can discuss step by step so that you will get some idea with the demo. First of all, local repository. When you run that Maven related commands, example mvn compile command. Now what will happen, right? It will be download the specific plugin from central repository if it doesn't exist in the local. In local, right? In local, we'll be having example if it is a Linux server, it will be stored it inside the .m2 directory repository. If it is the Windows, right? Inside your user, specific user, we have a .m2. There we have a repository. It will be stored. Now suppose what is the major purpose? This particular local repository, it will be store dependencies downloaded from remote repositories. Whatever we downloaded right from remote repository or central repository, right, it will be stored inside the .m2 directory. What is the major advantage of storing the local repository? The reason, right, first time it will be download. If you do again mvn related commands, it won't be downloaded. The reason it will be avoid re-downloading dependencies if they are already present in the local repository. Understood, right? And for example, when you run that mvn install or mvn compile command, okay, the particular plugins will be stored in the whatever artifacts, right? It will be stored in the local repository. Okay. And next one, right? If you add dependencies inside the pom.xml, when you do that inside the pom.xml, you have defined that compiler plugin. Okay. Now what will happen, right? First, it will be check it in the local repository. If it is inside the pom.xml, inside the .m2 directory repository, if it is already existed that particular plugin, it won't be download from central repository or remote repository. If it doesn't exist, what will happen, right? It will be download from remote repository. Again, I'm repeating local repository for the Linux .m2 directory. For Windows specific user, inside the user will be having the .m2 directory. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you the demo so that you will get some idea. Example here. Example here I have one application that is a Java Hyphen project. If you remember earlier, I have showcased the demo, right? Now what I'm going to do, I'm giving like this Maven compile. Now what will happen? It will be compiled from .java to .class files. It will be convert, right? Now if you see here, when I run this mvn compile, first it will be validate and then it will be compiled. But if you observe here, when I do the mvn compile first time, if you come down a little bit, go up a little bit. Yeah, if you see here, when we do that one, right, the specific compiler plugin we don't have in the local repository. That's why it is downloading from central repository, that is repo.maven.apache.org. This is our central repository URL. This is the central repository URL. It is downloading from there. The reason I gave that mvn compile, so it is downloading from there. And also we haven't declared anything inside the pom.xml, whether I need to download from central repository or whether I need to download from remote repository. By default, it will go to the central repository. If it doesn't exist, I mean, if it is not exist in the local repository, now it is downloaded from central. If you see here, it is downloaded. Where it is stored? As I said, when you use mvn compile for the Linux command, from Linux, the path is .m2 directory, repository directory is there. Inside it will be stored that particular dependencies. Let's see that. Now, if you see here, I have opened another tab. This is the same server. Currently, I'm in the .m2 directory and repository. Now, if you give the ll command, and here you can see that multiple things. And now the plugins related, compiler related plugins, it will be stored in the org. Go to the org, and then you can give the ll. And here you can see that Apache. Go to the Apache, and then ll. And here you can see that Maven. Go to Apache. Go to the Maven, and here you can see the plugins. Go to the plugins. Okay, and then here, if you observe here, inside the plugins we have a specific plugin. One is compiler plugin and then resource plugin. Okay, when you do that MVN compile, this specific plugins was downloaded. It is available in the .m2 directory. If you see here, .m2 directory is available. As I said, if you run it again, let's take example. I'm going to run it again. If you see here, MVN, I'm running MVN compile. Now it won't be again. It won't be download from central repository. Now what will happen? Whatever MVN compile related plugin, it is already there inside the our local repository. In our local repository already exists. That's why it won't be download. Just it will be use the specific whatever this one repositories, right? From local it will be use it the specific dependencies. It won't be go to that again central repository download again and again. The reason it is already available in the .m2 directory local repository. That's why this time it is not downloaded anything from central repository. Understood, right? This is the uses of central repository. Any questions? Sorry, local repository. Any questions? Again, I'm repeating for the Linux .m2 repository. For Windows, the specific users, C users username .m2 repository. And when you do that first time, right, MVN build life cycles, first it will be checked in our local whether it exists or not the specific dependencies plugins. If it doesn't exist, it will go to the central repository. It will be download. Okay, understood, right? Fine. And also I have showcased the demo how it was working. Now next one, right, coming to the central repository. Central repository is available publicly available. Okay, repository maintained by Maven team, and here you can click this. This is our central repository. The URL is repo.maven.apache.org. This is our central repository URL, and here you can see that all the dependencies, plugins, everything. Okay, first it will be if it is not available in local, it will be fetched from central repository. It will be stored in the local. Understood, right? This is the central repository. The main purpose, right? It is provide a standard location to download commonly used dependencies. Example, comparer plugin, okay, surefire plugin, and deployer plugin, install plugin, everything it will be download from central repository only first time when you do that. Okay, if you done second time, now it will be taking from local only because it is already exists. That's why if it doesn't exist, it will be download from there. And remember one thing, automatically access when the dependencies are not found in the local repository. As I said, if it doesn't exist in the local repository, it will go to the central repository. From here, it will be download. Okay, fine. Now here you can see the example Spring Boot related application. If you want to be define this one, if it doesn't exist in the local repository, now it will go to that specific plugin from central repository. It will be download. The specific example we mentioned here, Spring Boot Starter Web, the specific version, everything it will be download from central repository. If it doesn't exist in the local. Okay, but when you do that first time, first it will go to that central repository. It will be download, and then next time it won't be go again central repository. The reason it is already exist in the local repository. Any question this part? Fine. Now third option is remote repository. This is also one of the most important. Some of the organizations, right, they don't want to go to the central repository and to fetch download from that specific plugins dependencies. So then what they will do, right, they will be store that dependencies in the remote repository. Example, Nexus or JFrog, they will be store it. Example, I'm telling here, remote repository is repository hosted on server, either public or private, that Maven can access over the network. There are types, right? Maven central repository, default remote repository, that is one. Second one is some of the companies, they will be maintain the specific remote repository. Example, Nexus, Artifact, that is the JFrog, for storing the internal dependencies. They will be store the internal dependencies in the Nexus or JFrog. This is the 90% of the organization, they will be store that dependencies in remote repository only. Instead of downloading from central repository, they will be store internal dependencies in the Nexus or JFrog, and then they will be configured inside the pom.xml. So it will be work. Example, if you see here, the main purpose, provide additional dependencies that are not in the Maven Central. If the specific Maven Central doesn't exist, we can store it in the central one. In remote repository, we can use it that one. Example, one application dependency for other application, right? They will be build that one common dependency, and they will be stored in the Nexus or JFrog. The particular one, we can use it for entire organization. Clear, right? Now example, and this is majorly used by organizations to host private artifacts. And the example, your company maintain the internal libraries. Some of the organizations, as I said, some of the organizations, they will be maintain the internal libraries. they can host it in either Nexus or JFrog. Some of the organization depends on organization to organization. Usually, majorly they will be use the JFrog to store the artifacts. Some of the organization they may use store to Nexus as well. Okay. To use the custom remote repositories inside the pom.xml, you need to define like this. Example, repositories, repository. This ID. You need to mention that your ID, my company repo. We mention example, and then here you can see that URL, right? Usually repo.example techworldwithmurali.com/maven2. You can give anything. Project to project, if they have a different URL, they will be mentioned the specific URL here. Understood, right? So we'll be defined like this so that whatever you are mentioning inside the pom.xml, it will be used. It will be used the specific whatever we mentioned that what are the dependencies. It will be download from there from the remote repository. Okay. Any questions now? Maven will check the remote repository if dependency is not local or in the central repository. If it both is not available, it will be download from remote repository. Now here you have to understand one thing, the workflow, how it will be happen. When you do that example, I did that ambient clean command, ambient compile command. It needs to be use the compiler plugin, right? How it will be a work. First thing is right, local repository. When you do that ambient compile command, first it will be check it in the local repository. If it is exist, yes, it will be use that particular plugin or particular plugin will be use it. Particular dependency it will be use it. Second one is if it doesn't exist in the local repository, then it will be check it in the central repository. Okay, if it is not available in the local repository, now it will go to the central repository, that is this one central repository. From here it will be download. In case whatever you mention that specific one, if it is not available in the central repository, then what will happen? It will go to the remote repository. Remote repository is nothing but either Nexus or JFrog. Organizations, they will be stored that dependencies plugins in the Nexus or JFrog, right? It will be go to there and it will be verified. It will be verified. If it is not found in the three, either in the local, either in the central repository, either in the remote repository, then what will happen? Maven will be throw the error. Maven will be throw the error and it will be stop the build. Again, I'm repeating, guys. First, it will be checked in the local repository. If it doesn't exist, it will go to the central repository. If it doesn't exist the specific plugin, then it will be checked in the remote repository. If it is not available in the three local, remote, central, then what will happen? The build will be failed. It will be throw the error. Specific plugin not available. Specific dependency is not available. It will be throw the error. Depends on that one. We need to add it and we need to build again. Understood, right? Any questions now? This is one of the most important for understanding how it will work when you run this Maven build life cycles. Depends on use cases, how it will be run. Example, as I said, right? I have showcased the ambient compile. Initially, we don't have the specific compiler plugin in the remote. Now, what will happen? In local, what will happen? It is downloaded from remote repository. That is available in the local. That is inside this particular specific path. .m2 repository organization Apache Maven plugins. Inside the Maven plugins, we have example. I did only for ambient compile. That's why here you can see the compiler and resource plugin. In case if you do install plugins also it will be downloaded here only. When you do the next time, it will be check it in the local repository. If it is exist, it won't be go to the either central or remote repository. If it doesn't exist, it will go to either central or remote repository and it will be download. Understood, right? Any questions now? One of the most important in interview level also, they may ask the question like whether you really aware of how the process will be work when you do that Maven related goals, build life cycles, how it will be happen. So they may ask the question. So you should be aware of this one. Any questions now? Now we are going to discussing about skipping test cases with Maven. Let's see the demo so that you will get some idea. So why do we require to skip the test cases? Some of the use cases, right? When they are build the application, either using manually or through CI/CD tool, Jenkins. So during that time, right? Every time they don't require to run test cases. So then what we can do, right? We can skip those test cases. We can skip all the test cases, or we can skip only specific test cases we can exclude also. Okay, fine. Let's see the demo so that we'll get some idea. For that one, right here we can see the date and Maven. Here I already written that skipping test cases with Maven. Okay, there are different ways to skip the test cases. One is you can do through command line. Second option is we can directly declare inside the pom.xml. We can see that both command line and also declaring inside the pom.xml. First, if you see here, command line also we can do two ways. One is -d skip test cases. Second option is -d maven.test.skip is equal to true. There are two options. We can see that one. Before going to do, here we have a Java project. In this particular Java project, this is a jar file, right? It is generated. So this particular one, here we have a one test case. So we'll be skip the test case. Okay. Remember, I'm taking Java project, but in your case, if we have a in real time also same process only. Okay. Now first time what I'm doing, I'm giving here mvn clean and then test. It means first it will clean that if you have target directory, first it will be deleted and then it will be validate compile test. Test means it will run the test cases. Okay. Now we can enter here. Let's see. Now if you see here mvn clean test, first it will be clean that if you already exist, it is using that clean plugin. And also here you can see that surfer plugin and here you can see the test cases. It was running fine. Okay, here we have only one test cases that is also running and we don't see any errors, failures and skipped one. This is fine. Okay, now we can check it. You can use that tree command, tree space dot, and here you can see that this is our target directory. Here you can see the tab app.class to java to app.class files. It is converted when automatically do that mvn compile. And then here you can see that app.test.class files also. Okay, understand that? And here you can see surfer report as well. Here you can see that specific surfer report. Okay, now what I wanted to do, right? I want to skip the test cases. How do we do? For that one, first I'm giving that mvn clean. Okay, just give it. Now I did that mvn clean. This is fine. It is clean that target directory. Now first thing, right? I'm going to run this command. What is that? mvn clean. It will clean the target directory. Install means it will be validate, compile, test, package, verify, install. Right? That whatever generated jar or war file, right? It will copy to .m2 directory. Okay. And here you can see that -d skip test. -d skip test. It means it will skip the test cases. Now you can go ahead and run it. Remember one thing, when you use this -d skip test cases, right? It will skip the running testers, but still compiling them. Whatever test cases or app test.java files, right? It will be compiled, but only just thing is it will be skip the test cases. Let's see that. Just copy this one, or else you can go here. I'm going to run it here. mvn clean install. Okay, -d. Okay, -d skip test cases. Skip test. Okay, now you can enter. Let's see. If you see here, mvn clean install -d skip test, and here you can see that the compiler. And if you observe here, surfer plugin, here it is showing that tests are skipped. Test cases are skipped. Understand, right? Now you can go ahead. If you see here earlier, it was showcasing like, hey, we have a one test case, it is succeed, and we don't see any failures also, skipped one, right? But if you see here you can see that test cases are skipped. It means it is skipped the test cases. It is not run because of we run this particular -d skip test. But what I said, skipping running skips running test, but still compile them. If you go and check it here in the tree command, tree space dot, if you see here, if you observe here, target directory, whatever apptest.java, it is compiled. Apptest.java to apptest.class files. But if you observe here, it is not generated any surfer report. The reason earlier I said, right? It is skip the test cases. Okay. Again, I'm repeating, guys. When you use this command, mvn clean install -d skip test, it will be skip the test cases. First thing, it will be skip the test cases. And also, when you do this command, it will be run the test. It will be run that whatever compiling them. Apptest.class files, .java to .class files, it will be compiled. But only thing is, test cases will be skipped. Okay, understand that? Now if you observe here, when I run this command, mvn clean install -d maven.test.skip is equal to true. It means what will happen? It will be skip both compiling and running test. Okay, running test cases and also compiling both will be skipped. Let's see that. Now I'm going to run this command. Before going to run it, just I'm going to give it here mvn clean. Okay, now enter. Now if you see here, it will be delete the target directory. Yeah, it is deleted the target directory. Now what I'm doing, mvn clean install -d maven.skip maven.test.skip. Okay, maven.test.skip is equal to true. Okay, maven.test.skip is equal to true. Let's see, enter. Now what is happening? It will be, sorry, what is happening? Skip maven, skip true. What is wrong? Clean install -d maven test.skip is equal to. So yeah, I gave correct only. Let me see. Just run this command. Okay, enter. -d maven.test.skip is equal to true. If you see here, test cases are skipped. If you observe here, test cases are skipped and also compiling also. If you see here, compile not compiling test sources. The reason, as I said, if you use this command maven.test.skip is equal to true, what is happen? It will be skip the test cases and also whatever we have a app test.java files, right? Those also it will be skipped. The compiling, it won't be compiled. Now, if you go and check it here as well, you will get some idea. Now, what I'm doing here, I'm giving here 3 dot, and if you observe here, here we have only app.java related converted to app.class files, but app test.java files, it is converted to app test.class files. No, right? The reason, when you use, remember again, I'm repeating, when you use this particular command, -d maven.test.skip is equal to true, what is happen? It will be skip the test cases and also it will, whatever test cases, right? It won't be compiled. Those also it will be skipped. But when you use this mvn clean install -d skip test, it will be only skip the test cases, but test cases will be compiled. Whatever app test.class Java files, right? Those will be compiled. Okay, understand, right? This is the one of the option. Okay, if you want to do, we can do that on demand. But in case if I wanted to be integrate with in the pom.xml directly, instead of running that command line, I wanted to integrate inside the pom.xml. Then what you can do, inside the build option, we have a plugins. Inside the plugins, we have a Maven Surfer plugin, right? Inside the Maven Surfer plugin, here will be define the configuration skip test true. It means it will be skip the test cases true. It is always skip the test cases. Understand, right? Again, I'm repeating in this plugin, right? If you see here until here in this particular plugin, here the particular artifact ID, that is Maven Surfer plugin, and then what version 3.5.2 and configuration skip test true, and then it will be. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this one. Inside the plugins, we will be define this particular one. So now we can run it just mvn clean install. Whether it is skip the test cases or not, we will be see it. Okay. For that one, right, if you go here, here you can see that pom.xml. Now you can open this pom.xml. And here what you have to do, we don't have any build option here. If you see here in the pom.xml, this is the just a sample one, right? That's why we don't see any build option. Now what you can do, you can copy entire one and then you can come here. Okay. And then after dependencies, you can declare that one. Okay. And if you remember, as I said earlier, if you're not defining anything, default it will be taking the latest version from Maven. Okay. That is central one. If you see here, I have defined this one. Now what I'm going to do, save with this. And then first I'm running that mvn clean. Okay, just I'm running that test. We don't require what is that? Install. Just I'm running. If you see here, central, it is downloading Surfer plugin related to 3.5.2. That is fine. If you see here, test cases are skipped. The reason inside the pom.xml, we directly define that skip test true. It means it will be skip the test cases. Okay, it will be skip the test cases. Now what I'm going to do? Here here, instead of giving true, right? So I will run this command. Now what I'm going to do, here I'm going to run this command. Usually this command and whatever we mentioned the pom.xml both same, right? Now here instead of giving the true, I'm giving the false. Let's see what will happen. If you see here, -d maven.test.skip is equal to false. What is happening in this one? It will be skip the test cases. If it is true, it will be skip the test cases. If you mention false, it won't be skip the test cases. Let's see. Why I am showcasing this false, right? I already defined inside the pom.xml. Inside the pom.xml, I already defined that the skip test is equal to true. But here I am running in the command line. Hey, is the skip Maven skip test cases false? Whether it is skipping or not, just I want to show you. But if you see here, even though if you mention in the command line, okay, but inside the pom.xml we have hard coded, right? That's why still it is showing that testers are skipped only. Okay, any questions now? Now I'm going to show you another example. Here I'm going to open the pom.xml. Okay, inside the pom.xml we mentioned that skip test true, it means it will be skip the test cases. Now here I'm mentioning that instead of true I'm mentioning false. Okay, I'm mentioning here, remember guys, the skip test cases instead of true we mentioned that false. Now you can save it this one. Okay, now what I'm doing here, mvn clean test. Let's see. Now if you run it this one, right, it will run the test cases. The reason we mentioned inside the pom.xml that particular one, if you see here, false. That's why it is running the test cases. Now what I will do, we mention inside the pom.xml skip test false. Okay, now what I will do, I will run this command. What is that? I will run this particular command. What is the which command? I'm running this particular command. If you see here, mvn clean install -d maven.test skip is equal to true. Let's see. Inside the pom.xml, we wantonly we mention that false, it should be run it. But if you run it in the command line, if it is a true, even though if you mention inside the pom.xml false, it will be skip the test cases. Again, I'm repeating, guys. Here there are two things. If you mention inside the pom.xml skip test true, it is always skip the skip test true. It is always skip the test cases. Even though if you run it in the command line, hey, I can mention the true. No, it won't be. False. If you mention in the false, it won't be skip the test cases. It will always it will always skip the test cases, because inside the pom.xml we mention skip test true. Even though if you mention inside the in command line false, it won't be run it. Always skip the test cases. Second scenario is inside the pom.xml we mention that skip test false. Skip test false. Okay, clear? We mentioned that skip test false. Now in command line I'm mentioning that skip test true. Then what will happen? It will be override whatever we mentioned the pom.xml. It will be override and skip the test case thing. And one more thing, remember guys, sometimes some of the situations, right, we may require to exclude some of the test cases. Then what you have to do, we can mention like this. The same plugin, the specific Surefire plugin configuration excludes. In this excludes, right, developer, they will be mentioned the specific test cases. Here you have to remember guys, this one, whatever configuration related, taking care by developer only, not the DevOps team. They will be defined that, hey, I need to exclude specific test cases. They will be mentioned inside the pom.xml. Okay, in case if they are facing any issues, if they need any help, developer need any help, they will reach out to DevOps team. Then you have to help them. That's why you should be aware of how it will work. Skip test cases. Okay, in with Maven. Understood, right? Again, I'm repeating. There are two options. One is using command line. Second option is inside the pom.xml. We can declare in command line also we have two options. One is -d maven skip test. That is, it will be skip the test cases, but it will be compiled the whatever app test.java files. But when you use that -d maven test.skip is equal to true, then what will happen? It will be skip the test cases, and also whatever test Java files, right? It will be skipped. Okay. And the next one is pom.xml. Inside the pom.xml, we can declare. If you declare the skip true, even though if you run it in the command line false, it won't be skip it. It will, sorry, it won't be run it. It will always skip. The reason inside the pom.xml, we declare true. In case inside the skip pom.xml, if you mention skip test false, but if you running in the command line skip test true, it will be skip it. That is the differentiation. And also, as I said, here we have, if you want to be exclude specific, what is that? Test cases, we can do that one as well. Okay. Any questions now? Any questions now? In our case, right? If you see here, in our case, three dot. In our case, we have only one test, app test.java. If you want to be skip it, we can skip it. This particular path, you need to define here. We need to define the exclude the specific path. Okay, clear, right? Any questions? And again, I'm repeating, the skipping test cases and defining these conditions, everything will be taken care by developer only, not the DevOps team. But when it comes to the integrated with the Jenkins, right? That time we may require to configure in that configuration, whether you want to be skip the test cases, or some of the projects that they may directly define inside the pom.xml only instead of declaring command line. Okay, that is project to project. Okay, any questions now? Now we are going to discussing about understanding and exploring pom.xml options. Let's see the demo so that you will get some idea. So for that one, right? And here you can see that DevOps 0 to hero day 10. And here I already written that README file, and you can open this. And also we have a pom.xml as well. We can discuss. And here, right, in our case, if you remember earlier, we discussed about user registration. This is one of the Spring Boot application, and also we integrated with the DB as well, MySQL. Okay, fine. Now what you can do, we can see that pom.xml best practices for Spring Boot application. First thing, right? First thing, here we have a pom.xml. I already mentioned here all the options examples, so that you please have a look when you go to the interview also, you will get some idea. Okay, first of all, project tag. If you see here, this project tag open and close is there. If you come here and open and close, remember inside the pom.xml, this is the mandatory tag. Project tag is mandatory tag. Here will be mentioned that a specific license related one, schema, everything. If you go here and here, you can see that this is a root element project tag, and here you can see that these are the project, and this is the one. We don't require to modify anything. Just you can mention same, and here it will be defined the POM file format and XML schema. Okay, understand that this particular whatever we are mentioning, that XML, NS, and also XSI, right? This is the ensure that compliance with Maven standard schema, whatever, right? Maven standard schema we need to be follow. Okay, this is a, we can call it as a root element. Again, I'm repeating, inside the pom.xml, this project tag is the root element, and this is a mandatory one. Okay, fine. Next one, if you go here, I can come here. Yeah, if you go here, module version. Here you have to remember, depends on you are using the Maven version. Example, you are using Maven version 2 or 3 and 4 also they will be released, right? Then what you have to do, you have to mention that module version, it should be mandatory 4.0.0. It is mandatory 4.0.0. Understand that? Again, I'm repeating, this module version 4.0.0, it is mandatory for Maven 2, 3, and 4. Okay, but currently, right, as I said earlier, current latest version is 3.9.9. That's why you should be mention that 4.0.0. Okay, and then next one, right, if you go here, pom.xml project metadata. Remember, if you remember when we create that Maven project, either Java application or web application, during that time we gave that group ID, right? Same group ID, techworldwithmurali, and artifact ID, the specific project name and version 0.01 -snapshot, and packaging, whether it is jar or war file. Okay, now you can see it here, same thing, come down, and here you can see that project metadata, the specific one, group ID, artifact ID, version, packaging. Okay, remember here we mentioned that packaging jar file. So install that one in application to application. Okay, we may have the instead of jar, we'll be having that var also. Okay, any questions this one? Any questions? No, right? Fine. Now what is the next step? And here you can see the parent tag. Remember some of the projects, right? One project we may require another project dependency. Then what you can write will be define that parent tag. Okay, parent project. Here we define same whatever project information, parent tag also same, but only thing is difference is, right, this particular whatever user registration, right, this particular user registration, if it is depending on any other, then we need to define here the particular parent project related information, that is group ID, artifact ID, version. If you have any relevant path, you can define here. Okay, any question this one? Any question? Same thing here, we mentioned that if you have any dependencies, right, and then we'll be defining inside the parent tag, dependencies on specific application. Okay, fine. Now we can come down multi-module configuration. Multi-module configuration is nothing but, I will show you here example user registration. Here I have created a multiple modules. If you see here, order service, payment service, and user service. Example I have created, guys. Similar only in real time. And if you go here in order service, here we have a pom.xml, and also we'll be having that src, some other structure, whatever we have, I have showcased, right? Same thing only will be there. Only thing is, single project will be having the multiple child modules. Okay, multiple child modules. Here, each module will be having the separate pom.xml. If you see here, order service, we have a pom.xml, and also if you go here, user service, we'll be having the separate pom.xml. Now what I'm saying, instead of running individually, whatever we have a modules, example, we have a 3 modules, right? Order service, payment service, and user service. These 3 modules, what we will do, inside our pom.xml, will be declared like this. Now what will happen? Usually we'll be run that MVN related commands in the main pom.xml, right? Then automatically it will be load these modules. Also it will be execute. The reason, because of this one we mentioned, right? It will automatically execute. You don't require to go to the each module to run MVN command related one. Okay, understand that? That is the major advantage of declaring the modules. Okay, any questions now? Any questions? Now next one is property stack. This is the one of the most important. The reason, right, this property stack will be defined any common things. Example, in our entire pom.xml, we are calling that Maven version or Java version, specific version in other locations, wherever it is applicable. Instead of hard coding, right, what we will do, we will be define the property stack. Okay, example, if you see here, maven.compiler.source, we mentioned that 17. Now this particular maven.compiler.source, right, just copy this one, just search here, you will get some idea. If you see here we use that line number 134. If you see here, we use that $open clause, the specific name, the particular parameter name. Here, if you define the properties, if you want to be called that property, right, here if you need to use the $open clause. Okay, here what will happen? It is automatically place the Java 17. If you see here, if you go up a little bit, here we what we mentioned in this, go up a little bit. What we mentioned here, we mentioned that 17, right? It will be used the 17 version. Similar for compiler also, similar for this one as well. Here we mentioned that only few, but in real time, right, wherever it is applicable, we always recommend to use the properties. The main advantage, currently we mentioned that 17. Okay, now if you mention here 21, this particular properties we are referring some other locations inside the pom.xml. What will happen? It is automatically applied. We don't require to go each and every location. Hey, Maven compiler version, I need to change from the specific one to specific. You don't require. Just you can change it from the properties file. When you do that MVN related, right, it is automatically applied, and then it will be changed from 17 to 21. You don't require to do any other locations. That is the major advantage. Okay, clear, right? That one also we mention here. Any questions now? Now next one is dependencies. Remember, each application will be having the dependencies. Example, in our case, our application is Spring Boot application, right? Spring Boot application related dependencies. Example, Spring Boot starter and actuator, data JPA. Okay, some other things also available. Starter web, and also this one as well. If you go here, these are the Spring Boot dependencies. Remember one thing, here I have mentioned based on my application user registration, these are the dependencies I have mentioned. But in real time, right, we may have some other dependencies also we need to define. Where we need to define? Inside the dependencies tag. Inside the dependencies tag, we need to define. And one more thing, highly recommend when you are defining any dependencies, right, better to mention like this. Example, these are the Spring Boot dependencies until here. So anyone can understand easily, okay, these are the Spring Boot related dependencies. And the next one is database related dependency. Okay, they can easy to understand. Okay, clear, right? These are the Spring Boot related dependencies. And here you can see that each one starter core dependency for Spring Boot and the actuator, this particular monitoring and health check related one. Okay, some other things also we have. Okay, clear, right? And you may ask question, Murli, this configuration, I mean dependencies, who will be added? This will be taken care by developer only, not the DevOps team. But you should be aware of how the pom.xml will be there. In case if they ask in interview level also, okay, you need to explain like what are the options available. You should be aware of that. Okay, and the next one is database dependencies. As I said, right, this particular user registration, we integrate with AWS RDS MySQL, right? That's why you need to add that particular database related dependency as well. In our case, if you see here, group ID MySQL, artifact ID MySQL connector Java, that specific version we mention. Similarly, in real time also, will be mentioned the specific dependency as well related to database, and also testing dependency related to Spring Boot. This is the mention, and also here you can see that database related dependency and also testing dependencies as well. Testing dependency is nothing but JUnit2, Mockito, okay, for unit test testing related. These are the plugins, so dependencies. Okay, any questions now? Any questions now? Next one, if you come down little bit, distribution management. Inside the distribution management, right, we'll be defined that one is snapshot and release. One is snapshot and release. Usually in the real time, right, majorly will be defined. One is Nexus related one, artifact, and the second one is what is that? Nexus related one. Second one is JFrog. Okay, I will show you later part, but you need to be understand how it can be defined. If you see here in the distribution management, snapshot repository is nothing but release repository, and here we mention that ID, and this is our snapshot related URL. Example, nexus.techworldwithmurali.in repository / maven snapshot, maven releases. Okay, if you want to be store our jar or war file to the remote, right, when you do the ambient deploy, as I said earlier, we will be use that ambient deploy, right? So before going to do the ambient deploy, we need to define inside the distribution management, inside the pom.xml. Okay, and snapshot repository for development versions, and release repository for stable versions. These are the two. Okay, understand, right? And here I have showcased for Nexus repository, similar for JFrog also, same only, guys. Okay, don't worry, when it comes to the Nexus and JFrog, I will show you how do we integrate. Okay, fine. Now any questions now? Next one, and the build configuration. This is our build configuration, and inside the build configuration, right, usually build configuration like this: build, open, close, inside the plugins, and we'll be having the multiple plugins. Example, if you see here, this is one of the plugin related to Spring Boot Maven plugin. If you see here, Spring Boot Maven plugin, the specific group ID, artifact ID, we need to be mention this one. Okay, and this help to building executable jar or war file. In our case, it is jars. Okay, understand, right? Fine. Now you can come down, and next one is Jacoco plugin. Jacoco plugin, right? Here we can see that plugin group ID, artifact ID version, the specific version. This Jacoco plugin related to if you want to be do the code coverage, okay, using SonarQube, right? For that one, it will be useful. I will show you when it comes to the SonarQube so that you will get some idea. Okay, and it will be generate the test coverage report as well. Any questions so far? And the next one, right? Common Maven plugins. Common Maven plugins, example, Maven compiler plugin. And as I said, right, we use the $open close. The reason we are calling that properties. We are calling that properties. Okay. And if you change it there 21, it is automatically change it to here 21. Okay. That's why highly recommend. This is majorly for compile Java source code. And the next one, right? This Surfer plugin related to if you want to be run the unit test cases, will be defined here. Specific test cases as well. Okay, any questions so far? Yeah, now if you go here, build option is done, right? Now you can come down a little bit, and you can come down, and here you can see the project information. If you want to define your URL, you can define your the specific GitHub URL. Usually we won't be declared in the real time, but just idea purpose I have defined here. And the license related, if you want to be define any license related one, you can define. Example, I have defined that Apache license related one. Okay. Example, I'm telling guys. Here also you can see that project information and also licensing part. These two, right? Usually, honestly, I'm telling these two we won't be declare in the pom.xml, but just for idea purpose, I have a declare here. Okay. Next one, if you want to be define that who has developed this particular application, user F1 registration. If you want to be define that developers related information, we can define it. Usually here will be mentioned instead of Murli, right? Example developer, and then who is the name of that owner. And also here we can mention the specific mail ID as well. Example, in our case, I have mentioned like this. Okay. But in real time, right? Usually if you want to be mentioned, they will be mentioned. It is developer decision. Okay. If they wanted to mention, they can mention, or else they won't. Okay. Fine. Now we can come to the source code management. This SCM also we won't be use it, but just for idea purpose, please have a look this one. Okay. In the SCM, right, connection, that particular GitHub related one will be mentioned, and developer connection. And here we can mention that GitHub related one. And this two also, this one also, we won't be declare anything. Okay. Understand, right? Any questions now? Now, if you see here, this is a developer one, we won't be, and also SCM also, we won't be declared. And next one, right? Profiles. Profiles, right? Here, example, I'm telling, there are multiple use cases will be used profile. One of the example, right? Depends on environment. Here you can see that development profile active by default. If you see here, ID is dev and activation active by default true. It means default it will be true only. When you do that mbn deploy, mbn install, right? During that time, it will be use the default profile only. That is fine for development purpose. And when it comes to the production, right? If you want to be run anything, what you have to do? You need to define. If you see here, ID, activation, properties. Here we mention the properties. env, the value is production. Okay. Name is env, value is production. Okay. And here you can see that -d env is equal to production. Then only it will be pick up this particular profile. Okay. Remember, Spring Boot active profile will be there. Usually depends on project to project. Developer, they will be decide whether we want to be use profile to activate. Okay. Otherwise, it will be take the default one only. Okay. That is depends on project to project. They may define. Okay. Any questions? And one more thing, remember, guys, whatever I have showcased, right? You can go to the Google and you can type it here, Maven pom.xml options, and here you can see that pom references. In this particular references, right, here you can see that what are the options is available inside the pom.xml. Everything they have defined here. In the documentation, everything they have defined. Example, group ID, artifact ID, packaging, dependencies, parent tag, dependencies management under dependency management and dependencies and dependency. It will be format like that. Models and properties, and also build. And if you want to be generate any report, we'll be use the reporting option. Okay. And also more project related information. As I said, name, description, URL. Okay. Organization, developer, contributor. If you want to be defined, you can define. Please have a look this option. Whatever I have showcased, right? It is 90% of the usually in real time will be used. Those options I have mentioned. Apart from that, one or two options here. Example, this particular inception year, some other things, but we won't be declared. But just please have a look so that you will get some idea. Okay, plugin related repositories, prerequisites, SCM, mailing list, some other things we have. Okay, any questions now? Any question? These are the pom.xml related options. Again, I'm repeating, in interview level, they may ask the question related to, hey Murli, are you aware of pom.xml? What are the options available? Can you please explain? Okay, have you written the pom.xml? Usually this pom.xml, everything developer only write. Okay, if they need any help, as a DevOps engineer, we need to help them. Understand, right? Usually they will be use Eclipse, NetBeans, some other things. Okay, and then they will be build that application. Okay, they will be configure that inside the pom.xml, whatever they require, the dependencies, plugins, everything. In case if they are facing the issue, then what you have to do in terms of pom.xml, guys, I'm talking about. We need to help them, but coding part they will be taking care. Developer only taking care. Okay, understand, right? But 99% developer they won't be reach out you. The reason, right? The particular Eclipse example, they're build the application using Eclipse. Then what will happen, right? It is automatically generate everything. Okay, everything they can configuring it. Okay, they can integrate with the Maven, integrate Maven with the particular Eclipse, everything. It will be do the automation. I mean, automatically generate the pom.xml everything. Okay, clear, right? Any questions now? I hope understand, right? What are the pom.xml, and also this particular pom.xml also is available in this day 10 Maven. Please have a look. If you have any question, feel free to ask me. Okay, any questions now? If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me by LinkedIn, Instagram, Telegram. And also we have a Techworld with Murali website. In this website, I only publish all the DevOps related courses, DevOps, AWS, Kubernetes, Terraform, AWS networking, Helm. Okay. Here I have published 1 month, 6 months, 1 year plans. If you are planning to enroll, you can come here and enroll it. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Thanks for watching this video. We'll see you next video.